One of the most common questions I see that come up all the time in the comment sections of my videos, sometimes you guys even write me your individual stories and scenarios, and basically the question is very simple. It's should I buy or should I rent? Especially now that the housing market is looking like it's on shaky ground and some areas are seeing some big price reductions, things like that. Interest rates are still high. What should I do? Should I buy or rent? And this video is not going to be a full-on buy or rent scenario, but there are some situations I want to bring up because one interesting thing that we're seeing right now is that renting is now cheaper in the majority of places now in the US, which was always kind of not really the case. You know, for a long time, buying a home was fairly affordable, and it's part of the reason we saw so many people jump in and buy when it was affordable. So now that it's not, renting is becoming the more affordable option. And I always tell people that when they write me and they say, well, to buy a house in my area is roughly equivalent to what it would cost me to rent something, then in that case, usually it makes sense to buy, especially if you're going to hang on to the property long term, because at least that way your increases should be more controlled. And if you're staying in the place long term, you're going to have the tax benefits of owning, you're going to have the long-term appreciation, hopefully, if you can ride out this downturn that we're facing right now, which is where it comes into how important it is to hang on to the place for long term. Wow, check out this house, everyone. They bought this place back in July of 2020 for only $665,000, and then fast forward to today, they want $1.6 million for this place, and it's already had a $95,000 price cut, no buyers. But that question is getting a lot tougher to answer now that the rents are becoming cheaper than the house payment almost everywhere, guys. And the thing is, most people are just going to say, hey, I can't afford to buy anything, I need to rent anyways. But people who are contemplating this now have a bigger dilemma on their hands if the rent is cheaper in your area, especially since we might even see rents continue to go down throughout the year, since we're going to see 1 million plus new rental units hit the market just in 2023. That is a lot, guys, especially when you look at the entire available inventory for homes for sale across the US right now is about 1 million. Airbnb listings, about 2.1, 2.2 million. That's insanity. A lot of those Airbnb listings could easily be converted into homes for sale and homes for rent as well. And we're not even going to get into this video if like it makes more financial sense to rent than it does to own, anything like that, because that could all just be its own video, and we've talked about that before in previous videos. Because a lot of people will say, oh, renting long term is a waste of money because you're just throwing money away, you're not building equity, you're handing over the money to the landlord. But they fail to mention the flexibility that comes along with that. And right now, when we have this highly volatile housing market where really nobody knows what's going to happen next, having some flexibility can really come in handy. Because if you're in an environment where rents are dropping like they are, and you can get a better deal than what you have right now and be saving $200-300 a month in rent compared to what it would cost to own a similar place, you're actually saving more than that $200-300 a month, guys. You're saving the repair costs that you're going to have with a home. There's things that come up that just need to be fixed. When you own the place, it's on you. And let's not forget about the huge down payment that it costs to buy a place, you know? Even if you're only putting 10% down on the median home price across the US is about 350 grand right now. So that's still $35,000, you know, versus you move into a rental that costs $2,400 a month, you're only putting down maybe $6,000 or, you know, $6,500. So it's a huge difference. You're saving that nest egg. You still have money for an emergency. You still have money you can keep saving for the home to purchase. And if home prices are going down in your area, that could be a win-win scenario for you. Not only are you saving monthly on the rent, but you're also saving for your down payment for your new home and having basically a repair fund in place for when you're going to need it. Because I guarantee you, when you own your own place, you're going to have things to fix. It's just going to happen. And to just put into perspective how fast things are changing, a year ago in 2022, it was more affordable to buy than it was to rent in 1 in 60% of all of the housing markets that were analyzed for this, and now it's completely reversed just a year later. It's become that much more affordable to rent than it is to buy, which is kind of astonishing for it to change that quickly. And just to give you a quick list from Zillow of the areas where the rental prices are dropping the fastest, you have places like Riverside, California, it's down 5.5%. Over the past year. You have Las Vegas, Nevada, down 5%. You have Sacramento, California, down 5% for rentals. And then even in Seattle, it went down 4.8%. So I would be really looking at all of these things right now if you're in this situation where you're kind of contemplating whether to rent or buy, because now that it could be actually quite a bit cheaper to rent than it has been for the past several years, you might want to look at renting just as a short-term gap until you do find the right home for sale. Because remember, guys, you know, most places you're only signing a year lease, and you can even do less than that if you find a more short-term rental, like maybe 6 months or 3 months, whatever. But the housing market takes a long time to turn around, and you know, you can't really expect a whole lot to change in the next 3 months. So even just renting for a year is going to buy you time to see what's going to happen, because it's a very high likelihood that where you're looking at buying will be cheaper in a year from now. And I don't know about you guys, but I see all of this as good news, because what this all boils down to for everybody, whether you're looking to buy or rent, is more choices, guys. We're having more rental inventory come into the market. We're having more home sale inventory come into the market. And when you have more choices, it takes a lot of the stress out of the buying process, or even the deciding to rent versus buy process. Because when people are, you know, pinned up against the wall and in this crazy position, that's when the FOMO kicks in and people make stupid decisions. So hopefully 2023 is going to be the year of people coming back to their common sense and making decisions that make actual sense versus just crazy things that, you know, people are doing because they feel like they have no other choice. Now, another interesting thing that we can look at that not only will give you more options on places to live, but will also end up affecting home prices in these areas is where are the most new construction homes being built. And by far, Utah is taking the top spot right now with 11.7 new homes being built per 1,000 people. And Idaho was trailing right behind them at 11.4 per 1,000 people. And right behind them is yours truly right here in Florida, 10 new homes per 1,000 people. So these are the areas across the country where you're seeing the most new construction happening. And just to show you guys how much that is, the national average right now is 5.2. So Florida, Idaho, and Utah are beating the national average by more than double. So some of this can also be good news for home buyers in these states who are looking to find a decent deal over the next couple of years, because these are areas where people fled to during the pandemic as well. And we saw prices skyrocket in all of these areas, and having more new homes come to the market is going to help alleviate the supply crunch, and it's also going to help bring prices down. It doesn't mean that prices are going to fall 30-40%, but it means that when you have more inventory, you're going to have more choices, and when there's more choices, there's more competition, which ultimately lowers prices. And you know, this brings up a good point, because a lot of people are saying, oh, America has been underbuilding and we're just going to have this, you know, inventory shortage for many years to come. But in fact, right now, guys, the December housing starts are at the record number right now. Just for multifamily alone, there was 536,000 permits pulled in December, and over the last 8 months, the average over those 8 months was about 650,000 new permits. And when you look at the amount of homes that are actually under construction as you're watching this video, check out this graph. The red line is single-family homes, and there are currently 769,000 single-family homes under construction, and this was up in December compared to November. And the blue line is any property that's being built that's 2 units or more, so multifamily, and there are 943,000 multifamily units under construction right now. And this is literally the highest level since December of 1973. And it just never ceases to blow my mind how much we're seeing over and over again these statistics just smash records, guys. Records that haven't been broken in 40 years with inflation. And now the amount of multifamily homes being built since 1973. I mean, it is astonishing. We're living through record times right now. And what this all adds up to is there are 1.7 million units under construction as we speak. So talking about housing shortage, guys, if we assume it's going to take at least a couple years for a lot of these units to be completed and actually hit the market, and you combine it with all the new construction that's for sale, sitting vacant right now, with all the new listings that are hitting the market in the springtime of 2023, and all the people who have Airbnb listings that it's not working out so well right now that are very likely to turn them into long-term rentals or possibly even list them for sale. All of the real estate investors that are getting margin called right now because home values are dropping. Imagine all the new inventory, guys. So when people talk about shortages, I think what they're really saying is they're short-sighted because they're not looking at the big picture. And the big picture points to the fact that we have a lot of inventory coming right now. And you know, I see this very fascinating dynamic happening in the housing market, especially when it comes to lending right now, because we've been seeing the 30-year mortgage rate tick down for the last several weeks, and right now it's at 6.15%, literally the lowest it's been since September. So a lot of people look at that and say, wow, things are turning around, you know, more buyers are coming back, this is going to be great for the market. But here's one interesting thing about that, guys. You're seeing these interest rates come down mainly because so many lenders are getting desperate. Mortgage lenders literally going bankrupt right now. They're offering these rates because they're desperate to stay in business. That's what this is about, first of all. And the Fed is not done with the rate hikes yet. But here's the thing. The HELOC rates are actually going up. So why would the HELOC rates be going up in an environment where the 30-year mortgage rates are going down? Doesn't really make any sense, right? It's all related to real estate. You know, they should all be kind of moving in tandem and going down together. But in fact, that's not happening. For a 10-year HELOC right now, the average rate is basically 7%, 6.99. And if you want a 20-year HELOC, the average rate is 7.85%, which is up from the 7.81% that it was last week. So here's what I think is going on right now. You have mortgage lenders desperate to get people into a new home. So what do? They put out the bait. What is the bait? The bait is the low interest rate, right? If you call 6.15% low. It's low compared to what it was, you know, over the last few months, but it's still high, especially since home prices are still too high to pay that much. But anyways, that's why you're seeing more people jump back into the market and take advantage of this. And once people take the bait, they buy the new home, they're in there, and well, the economy is not going so good right now. And a lot of people just spent all their money on buying that new home. Well, what are they going to turn to next? Most likely, home equity line of credit. And that's where they ding you, guys. They ding you on both sides. Not only did they get you with the mortgage, you know, they make money on that still, but now they're getting you a year later or even sooner with the home equity line of credit. If you guys don't think there's something suspicious going on with that, I think you should take a closer look at this situation where, you know, the rates for this are going up at a time when people need that money the most, all right? And the rates are going down for getting into a new home when people have the least incentive that we've had in years to get into a new home. So you think that's all a coincidence? Because I don't. Now, many of you watching this have likely heard of the Zestimate before, which is Zillow's online estimate of what your home is worth, and they call it the Zestimate. And turns out this number is basically trash, guys. Now, I've talked about this a little bit in the past. It has gotten better, okay? It is not as bad as it was when it first came out, that is for sure. I can even attest to that and back up Zillow a little bit on this. But the problem is that Zillow used that Zestimate tool as the starting price point when it came to making offers when they were doing their iBuyer program that got shut down last year. So Zillow was really banking on their Zestimate, that it was so reliable that this was going to make them a bunch of money getting into the iBuying and home flipping business. But obviously we know how all that turned out. It turned out terrible. They're not in the iBuying business anymore, and it went so badly that it forced them to lay off 25% of their employees, and it caused their stock price to plummet 80%. And this is what they ended up saying about their Zestimate once they figured out that this wasn't really working anymore. They even came out and said this themselves, guys. Zillow was unable to correctly forecast future home prices amid volatility in the pandemic-driven housing frenzy. And Zillow went wrong in all sorts of areas. They paid too much for most of these properties. They underestimated how much time it was going to take to basically fix them up, turn them around, put them back on the market for sale, and actually sell them. They way underestimated that timeline. And when you combine those two huge mistakes, it ends up costing you hundreds of millions of dollars, it turns out. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because even Zillow themselves admitted how bad they got burned from using their own Zestimate model to try and make a profit in the housing market. It didn't work, okay? And this is a warning sign for anybody who is a homeowner looking at this, or even if you're a home buyer and you're looking at the Zestimate as a starting price point for your offer. Don't, guys. Talk to your real estate agent, okay? Find out from your real estate agent what the real comps are in the neighborhood and what they think the home should actually be worth. Because I went through this many times with buyers in the past. You know, they would kind of ask me what I think that they should offer, and usually then they'll say, all right, we're going to offer even less than that. And a lot of times they did, and sometimes it worked out for them and sometimes it didn't. One thing for sure was that the number that I gave people was almost never the Zestimate number. There were some occasions where the Zestimate was spot on, but those instances were few and far between. And if you're a home seller, you definitely should not be relying on the Zestimate either. The best thing you can do as a home seller is to just pay for an appraisal and get that done. Especially if you don't trust what your real estate agent is telling you, which you should trust them, otherwise why are you hiring them? But let's say you want a second opinion, get an appraisal done, guys. Spend the $300. Get an appraisal done. They're going to be totally unbiased because they don't care what your home is worth. You're paying them to give you an evaluation, and they're going to look at the local market trends. They're going to look at the recent comps, and they're going to look into details like what school zone is this in? What's the flood zone on this property? And different things like this that can greatly affect the value of your home that the Zestimate cannot take into consideration. The bottom line is here, you should not be relying on the Zestimate. You know, you can look at it just for kicks, but when you're really looking at placing an offer on a property or determining the real list price for your home, you should basically just use that as, like, you know, playing a game, because it might be drastically different than what the Zestimate actually says. I even see that for rents too, guys, because they do like a rental Zestimate for a lot of properties as well, and sometimes it is so far off. I see them here on these houses that we look at on these walks, where they'll say the rental Zestimate should be $30,000 a month on some crazy house, you know, these expensive houses we pass by, and then they got them listed for rent for $12,500. And I just saw that in a video I did earlier this week. So that's how messed up these Zestimate numbers can be. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.